It's important to share information because information is power. And we want families to have power to raise their children in the best possible way they can, to give them a good start in life so that they can be successful.
I learned a lot about early child development, how important it is for a child during the first 3 years of life for them to be nurtured correctly and to get everything they really need, because it really paves the path for the rest of their life.
In 2010, 5 organizations in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area took a new approach to improving the lives of the state's youngest children. Through this initiative supported by Everyday Democracy, they engaged several hundred neighbors and community members from all walks of life in dialogues and action planning for change. Today, community teams are putting their ideas into action. The children and the communities are benefiting. In January 2011, Everyday Democracy hosted a Strong Starts Policy Forum to connect the energy and the ideas of the groups with each other and with lawmakers. The evening provided a place where policymakers and people from diverse groups and cultures talked and listened to each other about their hopes and concerns for our youngest children. Since the inception of the New Mexico Strong Starts for Children initiative, new people have gotten involved. New connections have been made, new ideas have taken root, and there are new stories to tell of how people are implementing their visions and using their voice for change.
So one particular initiative that we, or action idea that we incorporated with our funding that we got from Everyday Democracy was a Photovoice project. Kind of like a community type research project, I guess you would say, kind of begin with a couple of core questions that you're trying to find the answer to, instead of, getting written or oral feedback about that. You get your information through a series of photos. Basically, the premise of this was to find out what can school do to support cultural learning, what do they do that takes away from that, and just to kind of better inform us for the elementary school, like what can the school do protocol-wise, what can the school do curriculum-wise to make sure that what's being taught at the home is being enforced and practiced here at the school as well. I think that was one of the highlights of our project, was because, at the end of the 5th session, everyone didn't want to go. They kind of wanted to keep talking and engage in dialogue and continue taking photos and telling why these photos were important and how they communicated their cultural teachings and why, or what school could do or not do to support these things. So that was really invaluable feedback we got from our families.
The Youth Creating Change Film Festival was an action idea that came from the Strong Starts Dialogues, and it was an action item that came from Chris Olson, an elementary school teacher, who really felt that if people know about child and family homelessness, they will be more willing to help, more motivated to help change. She also thought that who better to make these films than the students themselves. So the Youth Creating Change Film Festival was the implementation of that action idea, and we got middle school and high school students to educate themselves and do independent research on child and family homelessness. And then they created their own 30-second to 2.5-minute public service announcements. And overall, I feel the Youth Creating Change Film Festival was a great learning experience. I feel like these videos helped them become advocates, and they educated themselves on the topic. And so by becoming advocates themselves, they're stepping forward and putting themselves in a position to make change in the community.
Family Development Program took part in the Everyday Democracy dialogues discussions, and out of the dialogue discussions, all of the partners and circles of dialogue came up with a need for resources for families with young children. And so what we did is we went out and looked at well, what do you mean resources? What kinds of resources are you looking for? What are your needs? How do you access them? How can we make it easier to find? And so on. So we had My Community in M and the New Mexico Early Childhood Community websites, which were already both established, but we wanted to look at how they could be responsive to this need for resources around early childhood in the community. So having a virtual village, a place where somebody can go to and say, help me out here with this problem. What other resources? What do you know about that I don't know about? How can you help me? I think that certainly while it never is going to replace that family mentoring and face-to-face connections, it is a place to start and help sharing information.
Our community came out with real concrete goals. And I think very doable goals, some long-term, some short-term. One of the first ones was to create a green community, to use solar power to the community's advantage because there are no public utilities. And I think that we saw residents that have already been doing that and we can learn from them. Another one was to create a safe environment for young children because there's no shelter for them before school. So we wanted to focus on ways that we can make sure that children are safe in the community. Another big one was public safety, because if you go out there, there's no streets, there's no markings. It's very difficult to know how to get in and out for emergency services. The other one was a healthy local environment for residents. And so we wrote a grant to the Bernalillo County Neighborhood Association, and we got it funded for $10,000. So that's how the community garden concept began. It was an offshoot of what we began with Strong Starts. And I think that there's nothing more rewarding than watching things grow and then how they're used. Children learn. They can learn to plant, they can learn to harvest, they can learn to cook the food. It's just like a cycle. So those are our 4 major goals. And I think that Pajarito Mesa could be a community that people from all over the world could come and look at and see how resourceful the community residents are.
The New Mexico Strong Starts for Children initiative continues to inform and energize community and state-level efforts to increase support for our youngest children, helping communities build on their own good work by involving all people from all walks of life in conversation and action will sustain the kind of public engagement that leads to problem solving, policy change, and improved conditions in every child's life.